What's up, everyone? Welcome to our first live session. Um, well, the finance minister's really done something special for us today, hasn't she? The budget, I think, is very, very weak. There are two main problems, as I can see. One being that the total borrowing that the government has taken for this year is incredibly high. They state about 17.2 lakh crores of total borrowing, whereas the market estimated somewhere around 16.2 lakh crores. So that's about a 6% higher borrowing than the market had accounted for. That also means that our fiscal deficit will be higher. And if the fiscal deficit is higher, this is really bad for any NBFC company. Exactly, Vinish, correct. So the STT increase is what crashed the market. Agar our finance minister had not increased the STT by this bigger volume, I think we would have seen a 0.5% correction or something, and it would have been fine. But the reason we see a proper crash happening is that the STT is increased, which means now the bigger funds, FIs, everyone's going to be selling even more. That cost matters to them much more. If there's any questions, Vinish, about this, feel free to go ahead whenever you need to. Anyone else as well. Now, in terms of what we can buy, there's a stock that I've bought today, not a recommendation to buy, but I've just gone into this. It's Bondada Engineering. I've talked about it a lot of times. And I think with the battery energy storage systems and data centers, both mentioned today, because they sort of play into each other. No? You need more power, which means you need BESS systems, जिसमें Bondada hai. And then data centers की वजह से the power demand rises even higher. So that's where Bondada becomes a play. I've gone into it today. It's here, right? I'm already in Bondada. Those who share ka lot is, it's about 60,000 ka investment. Seems like a good buy. But coming back to the budget, एक अच्छी चीज थी that the capex expenditure is 12.2 lakh crores still, which is good. But defense expenditure is lower, so I think this turns the tide for your BL and HLs. Disclosure, I am short on BL. I've been short on BL for a while. I'm a little bit of loss there, but I'm going to hold this for a while. I think it's an overvalued company right now. Sorry. Other than that, एक चीज जो अभी तक नहीं निकली, which you'll see in analysis that comes in a little bit when you watch the experts come in, what they'll do is they will translate this total borrowing, 17.2 lakh crores, they'll translate that into the total fiscal deficit of our country. So market had estimated that the fiscal deficit would stay at around 50% for the next year, meaning not 26-27, financial year 27-28. The estimate was that fiscal deficit would come down to, or debt to GDP would come down to about 50%. Whereas Nirmala Sitharaman ji has said that the debt to GDP would be at 55-56% 2 saal baad bhi. That in long-term view is bad for India. So just structural भी view बना हुआ था on our country that we are doing well, we have a good balance sheet, we are managing our fiscal discipline. That also took a hit today. That hasn't happened in 4 or 5 years. That for me is something that is still under the radar. People are not focusing on that because हम STT पे focus कर रहे हैं, but I think the bigger story here is the higher fiscal deficit, which will play on the valuations given to India as a whole. Now, you already know that I don't agree with the current P multiples we see for Nifty. Everyone says that we're trading at about average multiples. That's not true because we changed how we calculate the PE back in 2020. So if we go by the old methodology, we're still trading at a massive premium, right? I'm 26, 27 पे trade करें, so one of my videos as well. Now that overpricing that has been given to India, justified by the work that our government has been doing in fiscal discipline, that goes away now, which means now we're looking at our valuation coming down further. I think Nifty ka P by current calculations would come down to somewhere around 15, 16. I'll repeat that, 15, 16. That's a 20% price multiple correction if something doesn't change. अगर government इसी को follow करती है, follow through करती है, if there's nothing different in the fine print, this was surprisingly poor. This was not something that I had expected. I said it would be a bad budget. I'm releasing a video today on some stocks as well. And Wednesday, you'll get another video where I very clearly state that I think this is a bad budget. It's already recorded, but I did not expect it to be bad on every front, right? Again, if you guys have questions, keep shooting them, right? Because I don't want this to become just a one-sided discussion. Now, I also mentioned that I'll be discussing my trades. Budget ki related koi bhi questions, so feel free to shoot. Now, I'd said that I'd made a 50% return about over the last 4 months. That's on a Motilal Oswal ka page. I've got this on my phone here. So I'm going to talk about that today. Wo return aaj, because I was short, has gone up massively. I think now I'm standing at about at 13. I'm about at 66% return over the last 4 months. So I'll just show you that quickly about exactly how I went through it. So if you can see my opening balance on Motilal Oswal, which is here, shows about 10 lakh 72. This was a very sample portfolio. And today my position has increased by 2 lakh 47,000. So my total comes down to about 13 lakhs is what is the margin that I have. And I deposited a total of 7.5 lakhs, which again, I'll show you right here. I use Google Pay for this entirely. So just to give you a proof, it will take 1 second so that you have to trust me as well. So to Motilal Oswal, I have paid. Give me a second. It's opening up. So if you see in total, there's 2,25,000 and 5,25,000, right? There's then what you see below that. So below August, you'll see November 2024. That was withdrawn already. So since August 2025, I've put in 7,50,000. I'll come to that, Ashima, in 1 second on the aerospace sector. That's a very good question because the government has given something indirect. Give me 5 minutes. I'm just going to get to that. So 7,50,000 deposited, and I just showed you I'm at 13 lakhs on my total valuation in Motilal Oswal. If you want, I'll give you screenshots of this as well. So now, how were these returns made? Primarily by shorting. Now, I can show you my trades as well. Let me just finish up Ashima's question and we'll continue on that. So for the aerospace sector, could you tell me which side you're looking at? Are you looking at, when you say aerospace, you're looking at space or the defense aerospace sector? Because वो दोनों का बहुत different outlook hoga, looking at what the budget has said. The space sector as such, where you're talking about astronomy, that should do fairly well because there is an outlay for that sector. Defense, I am not very confident about. And there's a few reasons for it, Ashima. I've been negative on defense for a good 6 months now. The idea being after Op Sindoor, yes, our country performed really well, but we saw some cracks as well. I spoke to a couple of people who are at a very senior level in the military. And from what I understand there, while we did magnificently, there were some weaknesses exposed. BEL was an outlier. Its performance, the Akash Tir, was brilliant, no doubt about it. But जो valuations हम दे रहे हैं उस हिसाब से execution नहीं हो रही है. I'd mentioned that in a video as well. And that is why I think we saw time correction in these stocks. Still, the hope was that the government will keep putting money into this sector, especially because of obviously the geopolitical tensions. But that seems to be stopping now. The government with just a 10% increase, even when they have kept the outlay, overall outlay very high. उन्होंने अभी भी 12.2 lakh crores का outlay बोला है, right? Capex के लिए. And still defense only got a 10% increase. I think the estimate was 20%. That shows the focus shifting to the rural sector, right? To the consumption from smaller cities. It's smart for the government because that's their vote bank. And that is what is happening here. They have to make sure they win the next election. They have to make sure they win Kerala. They have to make sure they win Bengal, and all of that is playing in. But that doesn't bode well for the capex in India, which of course defense would be one of the biggest losers from what happened here. And I think BL and HL, if you look at, they're already falling. I think maybe a rebound, but then they would not see their new highs anytime soon. Now, coming back to the trades, I will just log into my Motilal Oswal account. Till then, again, if you guys have questions, let's go through it. And we were also supposed to talk about finding microcaps. So if anyone wants me to start with microcaps, since we only have 5 people, just let me know and I'll work around how you guys want to work, right? If you want a different trajectory, we'll take that. So when I went with with trading here, right? When I started trading, my key idea with Motilal Oswal's portfolio was to test how much returns I can make with a very aggressive strategy. And this was a time when the markets had rebounded from what Mr. Trump had done. We'd already seen a significant rise come up. So I'm just going to share my screen so that you can look at this thing as well. Please don't record it, is what my request would be. Right, so I think you should now be able to see the screen, right? Okay, now I think if I see, it'll be in the reports, transactions, and we'll go for the assigned period, which would be, let's say, let's start from August 1st, right? And we'll go all the way up to Jan 20th, let's say. Yeah. Let me just see if I have it already, because this might take some time. So one of my biggest shorts in this entire portfolio that I've built over the past 4 months, one of the biggest shorts was Indigo, and Indigo gave me like a 10% return, I think, fairly quickly. Thank you so much, Sarah. Is there a major reform coming in the new income tax act? So it's making it simpler, right, Ashima? Um, with I'll have to go into the details, right? I heard it, but if I claim to understand it this quickly, that would be a lie. I'll be live again on the next Sunday. By then, I would have researched it properly. But it looks like they are simplifying it for the common man. I don't think your tax is going to reduce as much. I think advanced tax is reducing. They've taken down the limit, but I don't know how much it will affect individuals. It seems like the tax reform this time was more geared towards corporates in terms of quantity, but in terms of quality, which is the difficulties that you might face while filing your returns, or when you get a question asked by the IT department. In that regard, I think it's becoming simpler. So if you call that reform, then yeah, there is something there. Sarah, I just talked about an SME, in fact, which is Bondada Engineering. I've bought into it. I'm not recommending it. Of course, I can't. But I bought it today after what I heard from the finance minister. Now, to look at what we're doing here, I think this is the one, right? Yeah, this is the one. So let me just share this with you guys. Just a second. Please bear with me. If there's any questions, again, go for it. This is the first time I'm doing this, yeah? Let's see. So here it is. This doesn't have all the trades, but it'll give you an idea of how I traded, right? So I think it's dated. It's not qualified by date. So for example, one of the first ones that you'll see is BPCL. Now, I was short on BPCL. I am currently short on IOC as well. The logic behind going short on, I don't think you can see it. Give me a second. Sorry. So I can't share that with you yet, but I'll put it up I'll put it up on the next video card description. It will come out today. I'll edit it a little bit. The idea was, one of the biggest shorts I went into was OMCs, and that was completely based on what is happening macroeconomically, right? Even right now, I'm heavily short on OMCs. I'm short on IOC, Hind Petrochemicals, and BPCL already booked out of. It was a small gain, but we hedged tha. The idea behind being short on OMCs is India's OMCs won out because of the oil we were getting from Russia and then exporting. That was a big reason for both the tax collections and the profitability of our OMCs. That has to stop one way or the other. Either it stops because India is forced to take from Venezuela, or it stops because the US puts so much pressure on us to buy from it directly, or even Saudi Arabia. But in any way to cut down the purchasing from Russia, which is already happening, by the way. Our OMC, especially Reliance, has reduced it by some 70-80%. Now, when that happens, the OMC start making a loss. Now, they haven't hiked prices, so they won't have to drop prices as much. Or they didn't really drop prices, so they won't have to hike prices as much. But on their margins, right, GRMs jinko kehte hain, it will make an impact. Secondly, we expect oil prices to rise higher this year. They stayed low in the last year because there was an oil glut, right? China didn't need a lot of oil. And yeah, please, Sarah, go for it. So China didn't need a lot of oil, but there was enough production happening. That is why we saw an oil glut. Now, Venezuela ka war could, some people might argue, increase oil production again, but that will take years. That's not going to happen in the next 2 months or 3 months, right? The companies have to come in and create. So oil will rise. That lowers GRMs. Russia say we cannot buy as much oil as we used to. That reduces GRMs, which means OMCs fall. That's why OMCs are a 6 to 12 months short for me. Now, the next one that I've been short on for a while is IT. I have booked out of a little bit in IT abhi, but I think especially the Coforges and the persistence, and please don't hate me for this because I know they've become favorites for a lot of people. But These companies have risen too much too fast. They're getting a 50 ka multiple, 40 ka multiple. They cannot show that growth anymore. एक burst आया था, sure, but they haven't gone as far in implementing AI as people seem to think they have. There's a lot of promise. There's a lot of white papers. If you check, let's say, Persistent ka website, right, they'll show you plenty of white papers where they mention things that things like going into discover new treatments for cancer, but all it is a white paper, right? There isn't a proven concept, there isn't a beta product even. So that is where I think these companies I am short on, and I will stay short on for the foreseeable future till I see them come back to more realistic valuations. For example, if I show you exactly what I expect, we look at their chart just to see where it can end up, right? So let's say if I look at let's say we look at Coforge, right? So this stock is, you see this epic rise in the stock, right? The last time this thing happened was somewhere here. You know what happened there. Now I'm not calling for that, but it seems unrealistic that this company, which is at what, 44 ka PE, right, higher than it has been before the COVID pandemic hit and then this liquidity crush came in, right? It's been trading at those valuations for a very long time, and even here it's 44 because the earnings increased significantly. This quarter's results showed us that they're getting weaker. So that is the idea behind going short on Coforge. Now I've also been short on metals. I think I've made like a 1.5 lakh a difference on Nalco today. The logic behind that was also very similar. If you look at just aluminium ka chart, right? Let's look at a different one for this so we can get a longer term chart. Let's say here. So if I look at an aluminium ka chart, there have been peaks in the past, but the last time aluminium crossed this price level, got to 3,000, was here. This is a period where we saw record inflation and central banks had to raise rates, right, very fast. So if aluminium trades at 3,100, 3,200, that's demand destruction territory. It can't trade here long enough because वो mathematically impossible है. At these prices, companies will stop buying, people will stop constructions, infra spends will stop. That was the logic behind going short on aluminium. Now, why exactly on a Thursday did I post that I'm going short? Because it was too much. Hind Copper had an upper circuit of 20%. Nothing that big is happening in the world. Yeah. Okay, Ashram, about LTI Mindtree. So let me just show you my thinking, right? I have a rough idea. I was short on it before the results. I since closed my positions, just a disclaimer. But let's say screener is my go-to place, right? So if you're looking at just technically, it's looks like kind of a topping out pattern. Unless we had some brilliant results, I don't see why it would break out from here. Now, what I would check for any IT stock in India, Abhi, is how much exports they're doing, right? Because exports will be weaker. There is no doubt about it. So herein we can see that North America contributes 75% of their total value, right? Now, I don't expect the US and India to find a solution anytime soon. Even if India does well, and this is a little bit of a controversial idea, but I think that even if India comes to the table with concessions, the US will not really be open to taking those concessions till our growth slows down a little bit. That's a more geopolitical view, and there's a couple of books that you can read to understand how this works. But the US cannot let another major force come up in Asia, right, or outside NATO. That's my main reason for knowing that wahan par we cannot find cooperation. So I wouldn't. Govardhan, hi, thank you, Ghost Gunner. It's a very cool name. Mother of all deals and focus sectors, right? So I think, just let me recall. There was one sector, yes. So there's a stock called Trident. I think it's already very high today. I don't remember if I bought it yet or not, but I'd seriously considered buying it. Their main business is exporting to Europe, and they mainly sell to hotels and everyone. So this should really help them, right? Agar duty kam ho jati hai, so they can increase their footprint massively. They'll be more competitively priced. Their margins will increase. That is one part of it. But more important than the mother of all deals for me, Govardhan, is what China has done. If you're looking at finding a sector that will do well, for me, that sector is chemicals. And the main reason is China removed their impetus, right? As in, they used to subsidize exports from China, which is why they could dump in India. Now they can't do that anymore because China removed that subsidy, which means for all the chemical firms, they suddenly become more competitive. Their margins suddenly expand. So I would go into chemical firms, the stocks like Ether Industries, even something like Aarti Industries, which is suffering right now. But I think this is the moment of change. It might take a few quarters for it to reflect because उनको production दोबारा उसी हिसाब से they'll have to mold it. But yeah, chemicals is something that I would now go into. Now, another one for mother of all deals, I think Indian auto ke liye, it is not really good. I know people are downplaying it, but if we think about it, Tata and Mahindra were both entering the semi-luxury segment, right? Which is the region of 30 to 50 lakhs cars, right? Now, if a Mercedes Benz, right? If you get like, let's say an EQC at about 40, 45 now, why would someone go in? Most people actually will not go in and buy an BEV6 because if they can put in another 10, 15 lakhs and buy a Mercedes, I think most of us, I would definitely do that. So on mother of all deals, that's my key take. It's really poor for our auto sector, especially four-wheeler auto, Mahindra and Tata. Not so much for Maruti, as far as I can understand. For textile, the mother of all these is brilliant. For a sector that I would go into, my sector is chemicals right now, and that's based on what China is doing. I feel like the removal of the subsidy is probably the biggest change that has happened geopolitically. So auto ancillaries, I don't think we have a problem because whichever, let's say Mercedes wants to sell in India, they'll have to do, I think they call it, I forget, it's CKC. I'm forgetting the name, Abhi, but this is where you assemble in India, right? You must source a significant portion of your car from India. Your engines and everything can come from out, but you have to source a significant portion from India. So their auto ancillaries could still do well. I'd be very, very specific with the stocks though. For example, I think there's Force Motors that supplies engines to Mercedes. So that's a company that can do really well, again, because of the mother of all deals. Because Mercedes ko agar sales बढ़ानी है, तो Force Motors can benefit from that. Now, manufacturing, could you tell me a little bit more? Like, because manufacturing is a very big sector. Yeah? Is there something specific you're looking within that? Let's say electronics or textile, or which direction of manufacturing? I'll be able to be more specific then. Till then, I'll just show you Force Motors. So this was a stock I think I remember trying to go into at about I don't remember, maybe $1,000 or something. It was here, yeah. I was sitting with my dad and we were talking about how this was a very good buy during COVID, somewhere here, about 1,000 or something. And that's where we knew that, because of the engines they're making and how the liquidity was coming in, I really thought this company would do amazing. Anyway, missed opportunity. Now, within chemicals, I can go into which chemical stocks I'd buy. So let's say Ether Industries is one that I'm sure you guys have heard of. Even in this volatile market, it's been rising. The main reason behind going for this company is that they have a moat across half their products. कोई और बनाता ही नहीं है country में उन products को. And their management is just brilliant. Like, if I was to create a dream management for a chemical company, it would be them. Family owned hai, generationally they've been working in the same. The children of the new, basically, management that will take over slowly are very well educated in the same field and they are very well motivated. So I think this is a company that one should really research. Again, not a recommendation, but yeah. Metals, metals I am short on. I'm massively short on. I haven't booked out of my positions even after today's fall. I have a 6-month horizon. There's a video coming out on it on Wednesday where I talk about exactly why this happened. But no, metals, it's been too much. Let me just qualify this. Metals is a super cycle, right? They don't work in 1-2 year cycles or 5-year cycles like normal equities do. Metals work in 20-year cycles. So we're in a structural super cycle, right? 5 years down the line, metals might still have given you a 200% return from where they will end up at the end of this year. So Nalco, let's say if you look at the chart of Nalco, which is the company that I have my largest short position in, I created over the last week. So let's say if it's at somewhere around 420, right? It's the top here. It might correct all the way down to 250, right? I'm not saying that's the target, but it might even correct all the way here to its strongest support, 140. But 5 to 10 years down the line, it's very likely that it will be trading at a higher price than this because we are in a commodity super cycle. There's no denying that. Maybe even 2 years down the line, it'll be much higher. But right now, it's massively overvalued. Aluminium is massively overvalued. Demand destruction ke point pe, right? As I showed you guys a little while back, and we can see that with gold as well. You can pick a metal, and जब metal की prices इतनी steeply rise करती हैं, वो demand destroy कर देती हैं. Because these are commodities, right? Commodities create economies, right? So अगर economy का cost ही इतना high है, now I have to pay 2 times the price for the same aluminium shaft, then how am I supposed to build the building in that cost that I had estimated a year back? I budgeted 100 crores for a project. Suddenly, the raw material cost rose to 70 crores. Now, 30 crores, I can't finish everything else, right? So I'll have to pause it. This isn't optional. An economy is forced to slow down when metal prices rise. So whether metals fall because of demand destruction or because the economy slows, they have to fall. It's mathematically impossible that they do not. Pharma, Govardhan. So pharma mein, I think it's Mankind Pharma that I like, mainly because unka focus India pe hai. Again, I'll show you why Mankind Pharma. Give me a second. Again, please don't take these as recommendations, right? I'm not allowed to make recommendations yet. So if I look at Mankind, I'm just confirming. So they have about 87% domestic presence, and I'm focused on domestic companies. There are a couple of other companies that, because of the weight loss drug and the Botox drug, could take off, but that's still very nascent. I wouldn't go buying into a Lupin or something just yet. Let them prove that concept, because wo prove hone ke baad bhi you'll get plenty of time, either through sell on news or just being structurally there. I wouldn't buy into those if that was why you had asked the pharma wala question. Biocon also makes for an interesting idea, Abhi, simply because of what Ms. Sitaraman has just done. And there were a couple of FMCG like spices towards. Sure, I'm not aware of those though. If you can give me a stock that you were looking at, then maybe I can do some research in front of you. But purely a spices play, I don't know a company जिसके revenue में spices create that big an impact, right? Now, if I was to find this, let's say, right, let's use this as an example to find a micro cap, right? We were supposed to do that. So let's say I wanted to find companies, a stock to buy. I hope you guys can see my screen. Yeah, you can. Perfect. So let's say I'm just going to do this very simple thing. You might think this is so common sense, but this is how I do it. I don't know how else to work with it. So let's say, let's check if these now I'll simply take these companies and evaluate them. Here it's spices. It could be a bigger sector because spices is a very small sector. But I'm just going to go here and see what this company does. Now, you don't buy into this company just because its name is there. This is where you start looking at exactly what the company does. So, for example, this works in gherkins and pickled vegetables. Now, is this something that the mother of all trades, mother of all deals covers? I don't think so. But maybe olives would be something that Europe could use. They grow a lot of theirs though. So as I'm doing this, I'm thinking about the product, does it fit the market? And I'm also thinking about the kind of competition that the product would already have. So for olives, I think where would olives be used, right? Most of Western Europe, but there's already a lot of olive production. So I don't know how that becomes a profitable product. I'd want to look at a different stock. Shrivari spices could be next. And I'm telling you, half the times you end up with zero stocks, right? So this might just be a disappointment. But spices is 49% of revenue. Do they export? No, and the market cap is way too small for me to work. I think spices is a bad thing to go in. If you have a stock though, then tell me about it. I can look up at that. I'll check, Govardhan. Next Sunday, I'll be here again. I'll do some work on this. Let me just make a note of this. And then next Sunday, we can talk about if spices through mother of all deals does make a difference. Let's see. I'll check, Govardhan. We'll need some research, right? Data centers, Rohit, I think is, that's a sector. If you have a 5 to 10 year horizon, even buying now, I don't think is a mistake. But if you're looking at a 1 to 2 year, and like if, for example, my total capital was, let's say, 100 rupees, right? I'm only putting it 5 into one stock, and within that, I'm putting in one a day. So whatever I want to allocate to a particular stock, data centers is a brilliant sector to be in, no doubt. Just as we had IT companies in 2000, right? They crashed 90%, but over the next 15 years, they delivered a 20% CAGR, right? So not a bad field to get into, even right now, even at these prices. But to maximize returns while making sure we don't miss the opportunity, I would want to go into them slowly. I'd want to take time because everything suggests that we're right at the precipice of a major correction. Unless something dramatically changes, right, which I don't see how that happens, I wouldn't buy heavily yet. ADF Foods, I've heard this company's name. Let me just take a look. I'll also come into data center stocks. In fact, there's a video coming out today with, I think, one or two data center stocks. GE Power looks really good. So, base sources ready to eat. Yeah, this is a pretty good field. This is a really good field. So I think this is where I've heard their name. They make these ready to eat products, right? I used them when I was in studying. So yeah, if the duty on this is reduced, we'll have to check them. Duty on frozen foods, I think, is where this would be. Foods Europe through mother of all these. I'm basically just showing you how I do my research. It'll be much longer, but deals from India. But this is basically what I would do. I'm going to go in here now. I'm not going to do it right now because there's other people as well. Even AI mode will give me the answer though. But this is the idea. We look at all the questions that can arise. So for ADF Foods, we know what they're into. We know their product is good. We know that there is demand. With all those Indians there and Indian food gaining popularity, there's definitely demand. If it's much expensive there though, most students, including me, what I did was I carried like 50 packets with me because it was double, triple the price there. But if the duty reduces, I'll just keep buying there as well, right? Even students with a limited budget. So this can be pretty good for ADF Foods. Needs more research, but on the surface, on face value, yeah, could be pretty good for them. Now for data center stocks, right? So let's say, so there's G part that I really like. Anantraj I like, though I think the margin that they're going to have is going to be fairly slow. So this one we can probably go into. The stock that I would go into, and it might be controversial given what's happened recently, is Gains Tech. It's crashed a lot, which is a good thing, in fact, because we're getting it at a margin of safety, as Mr. Buffett would call it. Now, PY is still not cheap. 60 is pretty expensive. But the thing that they've done is that they're going to OSATs, right? And OSAT is something that the government, even if they haven't talked about it directly this time around, they're going to have to go into it. And especially if you look at how they're talking about rare earth magnets, right? आप वो use कहाँ करोगे? Rare earth magnets के लिए, if Mrs. Sitharaman is giving an outlay to that field, that sector, then the outlay is here, right? You're going to create chips. Where else are you going to use it? You're not going to just add it to the chips that you get from outside. That's not how chip manufacturing works, right? So अगर OSAT पे focus आना ही है directly or indirectly, then Gains Tech can end up doing very well. Another company that could do really well is Tata Elxsi if they pivot though. If they stick with just Tata cars, if they still focus on it to create some competitive advantage, then Tata Elxsi could be in for some trouble. But if they're okay with expanding their software design part, because they work on that, they don't create the chips itself, I think. They work on the design part of it, how the software integrates into the car. If they work on this with a Mercedes, with an Audi, with German cars basically, then given that suddenly German cars prices have fallen massively, like I remember the Porsche Macan was at 1.08 crores. I think it's now estimated to come down to about 80 lakhs. That's a massive drop, right? The Mercedes E-Class was at about 93 lakhs. It's come down to about should come down to about 75, 80. We still have to look at the fine tune, the finer details. But if it becomes that cheap, then they will look for chips in India. And that's where these companies can do fairly well. So data center mein, what would I go for? I would go for Anantraj for the long term because they are building the physical infrastructure behind it. Gains Tech for the technology. And then there is a whole video that can give you everything you need on data centers, where I've explained exactly how this industry works, right? Like from where the technology is the biggest deterrent, where we, for example, as India, do not have the technology and we have to use other sources, for example, like Thai company, and then there is a Taiwanese company that we have to collaborate with. But I've explained in that video exactly which stocks to go for which part. GPAR and Gains Tech were two companies that I didn't go into there because they were elevated at prices. But now that they've corrected, they are wonderful companies to find your way into with a longer term horizon though. Any other questions? Because I think you would also want to go back to trading, and I would also want to go back to trading now. I want to get to look at the market now. I'll have another session on Sunday. where I think we'll talk about micro caps and we'll go deeper into my trading if we want to. And if you have any questions, then please feel free. Like, I love this. I haven't done this before, but this is brilliant. I get to learn just as much as you guys do. So I'll just give you guys I'll just wait for 2 minutes. If there's any questions, I'll be here. If not, then I wish you guys happy trading. And please don't take anything I've said just at face value and trade. Please do your own research. I'm human. I could be wrong. Right? Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. This was an absolute pleasure. Let's see. Love that. I'm also short on Muthoot Finance, by the way. Have been for a while. I remember my broker saying I was crazy to go short on Muthoot Finance with gold rising, but come on, gold 2 lakhs doesn't make any sense. All right, I think I don't think anyone's got any other questions. I'm just going to make sure anything. Yeah. Wonderful, people. Thank you for joining in. This was my first session. If there were some complications, right, I apologize for that. We'll do better next time. Thank you for joining in again. See you.